I already messed up. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm super thrilled about this podcast episode today because this is something that I know Walter and I have talked about a lot, and it's huge in our industry. So for our audience listening, mainly designers, we have issues all the time with contractors, and contractors have issues with designers. And really the goal is, let's talk about it. Let's share some stories. Let's be nice. But let's talk about really the relationship and how we can make it better. So I'm going to introduce both of you. So I'm really excited that you're both here with me today. And then we're going to just dive in. All right?
All right.
I'm going to start with Walter. Walter is from Summit Development Group. For those of you who are listening, Walter is actually my contractor. I've worked with Walter for about 5 years now. So Walter Ferrer from Summit Development Group Walter is a general contractor whose company has been servicing Southern Ontario for over 27 years. They facilitate all aspects of a project, whether it be for residential or commercial renovation, remodeling, custom builds, and even outdoor landscaping projects. Walter's team combines quality workmanship and knowledge that provide clients with an unmatched service. Welcome, Walter.
Thank you.
And then we have Shane, who is owner of Ritzy Custom Cabinetry. So Shane Ritzy is a small business owner who has been in operation since 2008, a business built around customer relations and quality work. Ritzy Custom Cabinetry prides themselves on rising to any design challenge. Thanks for being here, Shane.
You're very welcome.
Yes. So I recently just met Shane, actually, probably just before Christmas at my sister's house, because Walter is doing my sister's renovation, which has just gotten underway now. I know this won't air for some time, but by that time we'll hopefully nearly be done.
Halfway done.
Halfway done.
At least halfway.
Yeah. So it's been a great working relationship so far. So I'm glad that we're able to we can bring something to this podcast and to our listeners to explain how we work together. And then having Shane that I've just met and was really impressed when I met you, and I felt instantly comfortable and like you knew what you were talking about, and you put my sister at ease as well, and so that can be kind of hard sometimes, right?
How kind.
Yes. He's a bit of a jokester too. So basically I just want to start by saying, let's get it out there and say, guys, what has your experience been so far in working with designers? And the show is not 4 hours long, so we won't go into a second one. But
keep it brief.
Anyone specific want to start with what your experience is? I mean, other than,
I can speak to like the wide range of excellent to horrendous. Right. So it's not, there's some that's worse than others.
Sure.
But you say that the stereotype or the kind of the interpretation that this is going to be bad right off the bat if a designer's involved.
Right.
I get that.
Do you feel that?
I do.
You do.
Yeah. From if someone new is coming in.
Yep.
I consider myself a pretty easy person to work with.
Yeah.
But you can figure that out pretty quick within the first few minutes.
There's a couple.
It's not going to go well.
There's a couple signs, and those signs would be just lack of experience or general knowledge, right?
Okay.
I can pick up pretty quickly on if you're applying yourself or you're not.
Right.
And I think that's right off the bat.
So when you say that, can you give us like an example, like a telltale sign, like you're chatting, the designer comes in, and can I just ask, is this a designer typically that the client would bring in that you're speaking of specifically?
Well, that's why I'm worried this podcast is going to be 6 hours.
You can come back again.
Yeah, because most of the time the client has a designer.
Right.
Most of the time the client has a designer that they've brought in. We've never met them before.
Yeah.
Obviously, if we're bringing in a designer with us, then there's already a relationship already established, and we know what to expect out of each other.
Yes.
Right. So a lot of times, it's like as we were saying before, we're in a business where it's male dominant, and I understand that the female can have a bit of an issue coming into a situation where sometimes maybe she comes off pretty strong because she has to set her.
We have to, maybe put our firmness into say, hey, we can hang out with you guys.
Which kind of sets a tone a little bit, right?
Right.
sometimes you can tell right away that it's going to be her way or no way.
Right.
And that's where we already clash.
Right.
And it's not going to end well.
So it's really, and I think that's a great point too, which really in life in general is just like, the way that people approach things, the way that you introduce yourself, the way that you handle yourself. So Walter, what you're saying is that sometimes when a new designer or a designer comes on a job that you don't know, who we're just going to say at this point is a woman, because the majority are, but not all, not all.
No.
You feel that sometimes they are trying to put in their assertiveness straight off the bat, but not in a way that's like, hey, nice to meet you. I'm excited to be working with you.
Exactly.
But it's more of like a...
Here you are, welcome to my job, this is how it's going to happen.
Right.
And now you're into almost a conflict right off the get-go.
Instantly, because it's not really like a collaboration.
No.
It's more like you're here to do what I tell you to do.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden, the designer starts firing off ideas, and they're not listening to our side of
what can and cannot be done.
Exactly. Which is
with budget in mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Huge thing is a lot of times we'll go into a job, and the designer's not really thinking about what is the budget. Mm-hmm. Right.
Just the creativity.
The creativity is going, and we really appreciate that.
Yes,
we do.
Yes.
Because every job is different, and I certainly can appreciate, at the end looking at something that's different and everything else. But also the client they always have a budget.
Of course.
And that's where we get into a lot of not fights, but battles with designers.
Right.
Is that if the client has X number of dollars and they have this wonderful creative view of how the job is to be, but I mean, she's going to be 50 to 100% over budget.
Right.
So now it's my job now to try and pare that back. And that's not easy with certain designers because they are very insistent.
Yeah.
That this is how she wants the job to look. So that puts us in a very tough situation.
Yeah. And would you say that comes from mainly from lack of experience, just lack of knowledge, or they just
sometimes? I think it gets complicated because I don't know the major background of how decorators or designers have everything structured. Right. I'm not privy to that personally. But there's kind of a mystery, like, what are you doing here? Like welcome.
Like you're one of the designers.
What's your job? Is your job to inspire me, like as a cabinet maker or a furniture maker, woodworker, right?
Right.
Are you providing the drawings? Are you providing inspiration photos?
Okay.
Are you giving colors? Are you, like, there's lots of tasks to do.
Okay.
But sometimes we have going, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking a little of this and that, and we're not writing this stuff down, and I'm supposed to be reading minds.
Right.
And it puts more work on me that I can't bill for.
Because you got to also figure it out. You got to try to figure out what the vision is.
On the work, like, a horrible example would be like, I'll get drawings. Hey, there you go. I did my job, right? I did my job,
right.
And I can look at those drawings, and they won't even apply to the situation. Measurements that are out of whack, and the doors will interfere with drawers, and like the lack of effort is seen. So immediately, I'm like, oh great, here we go. So now she's got billable hours. I have extra work that isn't billable, right?
Yeah.
And that right off the bat, obviously, that's gonna frustrate me.
Right.
And sadly, from a business owner, it's turned me into I'm just gonna shut up and do it, or I'm gonna take it. A lot of the times, I just take it and run with it because it's easier.
Yeah.
Right. And I go, but I'm cheating myself.
It's easier than having those conversations.
Right. Now, the other side of that is you could give yourself as an example, or I have other designers that say, hey, listen, here is this inspiration. I would really love to use this color. Can you draw something up for me? All day long.
Right.
No problem. I'm going to draw it up. I send it over, and hey, do you think we could raise this shelf? Right. Done. Well, great working relationship.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
But some are. Well, I'm heading the design, and going back to kind of what Walter says, like, well, it's going to be really expensive to do that. Have we talked to the client? Right.
Yes.
Well, no. Don't worry. Just figure it out now. Well, now I'm doing work.
Yeah. That might
even be turned down.
Yeah.
And I'm in there. Not as a designer, so I can say, hey, I did this drawing, and I'm going to need another $100.
Right.
And I'm kind of locked in. My numbers are legitimate quotes.
Right.
We're looking at a plan.
Yes. And if you don't always get that job, right? Too.
Yeah.
You might put those hours in.
Or these pictures or concepts or ideas, which I actually like more, where I can develop drawings, I don't mind that.
So what you're saying, sorry, so just so I understand, so you're saying that like when someone sends you photos, like I set up with my clients either like House Idea Book, for inspiration, or Pinterest boards, and then we can say, hey, this is the idea that we're thinking of. Is that what you're saying?
I think for me personally,
helps, obviously,
now okay, I'm far from a designer, right? But I do have like design and drafting background, so I'm probably more inclined to dive in onto a hand drawing versus some other companies.
Okay.
Again, I'm smaller too, so that makes it a little more personable. But I find that easier to work with, because what I'm doing is you dive in and you do all these CAD drawings and everything like that.
Yeah.
I can't give those to my guys. I can't build cabinets from that.
Right.
So I'm just doing it anyways. So that's why I kind of take it and run with it. Hey, just give me a concept, point me in a direction, and I'll go there.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And that's the whole purpose of a designer, is just to help us, because we don't want to have several hours of conversation.
Then it goes
with
back
clients,
to my point that started it, right? If you want to improve a relationship, can't you just come in and say, okay, I am here doing this. All right.
It's okay.
Don't touch the table, right?
Don't touch the table.
Walter, move your microphone out of the bed.
Yeah, it's just, it's maybe that is like to clarify what you've been hired for. Whether maybe Walter's brought you in and say, hey, listen, I really need some guidance on colors and wallpaper, and the best way to kind of, what are you thinking in this room?
Right, yes.
Right?
Yes. So from what you're both saying is having those conversations almost up front, but how do you have them up front if you don't already have an established relationship, like say like Walter and I have, because we know how we work together, right? So if you have a designer comes in, and I guess it's also like time, everyone has limited time. So for you to go, hey, why don't we go grab a coffee and sit down for half an hour and figure out, I want to understand how you work, and you can understand how I work. Like that's not, unfortunately, that's not realistic. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, but
right. It's not realistic. I mean, time is always an issue for us. The whole thing is that some designers just come in and there's a mutual respect already happening. If you can establish that within the first 15 minutes of an introduction, then it's going to go well, because we are there together.
That's right.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a client who you're trying to satisfy.
Right. And that's the hardest thing. And I've let a lot of designers, and I've walked away, and they've called me back to do more work, and I just don't want to work with them. Right. Because for some reason they feel that maybe because they charge X number of dollars an hour, and maybe because it's their job that there's a hierarchy almost, and it's not. It's not.
Right. Yeah. So because
it has to be mutual, right? Yes. And you can establish that pretty quick. You can obviously some contractors are also more difficult than others.
For sure. Let's face it.
I'm more of an easier going sort of person, where I believe that I want to be treated the same way that I treat you.
Yeah.
So if you can kind of establish that quick, I mean, we are supposed to be there as a team.
That's right.
Versus
100%.
some sort of a level.
That's right. 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you make or I make. It's we're there together.
Yeah.
And for us, especially for me, is that it's very important that a designer is on there, and I always push. I always push because I don't want to deal with a client picking 15 shades of white or
asking you
looking at 14 tiles that are all in that gray pattern.
For sure, you want that done already, and
there's a very strange thing that happens that when a designer is on site, somehow all the deflection goes towards a trust that's based on that. When it's me choosing, if I choose a white color on a wall and the client doesn't like it, they'll blame me.
Right.
And they'll expect me to repaint it at my cost. If a designer picks it, there's a trust established, and it's no longer the onus is no longer on me.
Right. That's right.
Firstly.
Right.
Secondly, there's a level of respect, I guess, towards the designer that she picked that, therefore I should trust her.
Right.
There's this weird hidden thing.
You should trust her, or the client, you mean?
The client trusts the designer's choice,
yes,
and she may question what I've picked.
Right. Well,
and I don't want to pick anyway.
That's right. Yeah. And I mean, of course, that's because
you have other things to do.
I have other things to do.
Yeah. And that's also because, I mean, we're designers, and that's what we specialize in. Like, that's our job, is to do that. But it's also our job to discuss with you guys, to be like, okay, is this going to work? Like, is this actually practical? Perfect example actually today, where you guys are going back on a job that is one of my clients, and Walter met them last week, and really just to have a little look-see and say, is this going to work? Something that Walter and I discussed with the clients, and just to see, is it going to work? Now, I'll tell you something funny, and I don't know, you guys can probably attest to this, but I'm a bit of an anomaly, as you probably know. But like, so for me, like most designers listening to this would be like, I'm not going to that meeting today. People will be like, what? You're not going to that meeting? Like, no, I'm okay. Like,
Well, you've already kind of done some work towards it.
I know,
right?
but the problem is that with what happens is that the worry is that now you guys could go there and everything could get changed, and then I wasn't there to like be like, whoa, hang on a second, I didn't put in my input. I'm telling you it from our point of view.
Sure,
That's
yeah, and I understand that. And in this particular situation, I also pointed to you that I'm just going to go in there to verify because the client wanted something out of the box.
I'm good with it.
Right?
I'm just
and I
letting
also said that
yeah.
I also will take our design concept and send it to you for your final approval before the client even sees. So why do you need to be there? I guess is what, because right now we're just looking for something that's outside of the realm.
For sure, and that's why I'm okay with it. But I'm telling you that you guys probably know
a lot of designers don't because there's a control issue.
That's right. They'll want to be there. Things can change on the fly. Things happen. It's like when you have the contractors are on site all the time, but the designers aren't always. And then questions are asked. Like something's happening in the house. A question's asked. Maybe you get the question. You answer, and the designer, and then the designer comes in and goes, well, hang on, this wasn't what we kind of agreed. And that can be hard if you're not on site all the time or if the communication's not happening. But I'll just tell you from a design point of view, like designer or design professional, that gets frustrating for designers.
Sure it does.
And again, it comes back to the communication, right? Just openly communicating. And I think really what's key and what Walter and I have is the mutual respect. And one of the things that I loved, like I said, we've been working together, I think about 5 years. I'd have to look back at some of the jobs.
Yeah.
Feels like longer. Walter, does it feel longer? But one of the things...
It's like marriage is love-hate. There's a lot of love for the most part.
He's looking a little run down these days.
Yeah, I think it's my fault. No, but what I loved about Walter was one of the things that you did actually very early on was we were talking in front of the client, and afterwards you kind of pulled me aside. You had made a suggestion, and afterwards you pulled me aside outside and said, shoot, I thought about afterwards, like, sorry if I stepped on your toes, like, was that okay? I realized after maybe I should have made that suggestion in front of the client. And I was like, no, I loved your suggestion, it was amazing, but I totally appreciate that you were aware of that, like, because that can be a thing too, right? Because the contractors have ideas, we have ideas, we want our ideas obviously, usually front and center, but we obviously, like you said, Shane, to your point earlier, we don't always know the ins and outs of what's involved with that sort of thing. So it's just that sort of respect where it's not like, you're there and it's like, no, you can't do that. And then we're like going, oh, okay.
And I feel like you're not expected to. I don't expect you to know the ins and outs. I don't expect you to say, oh, I didn't account for 1 inch of a wall scribe. I'm not expecting that. But if you're coming in there talking like you know it and proposing ideas, then get out of here. Let's all be I want to collaborate.
That's right.
At the end of the day, we take huge pride in the projects we do, big quality control, and like to be challenged and dial this in and make it special.
Right.
So we're all doing it for the same cause. So it's like, it just goes back to like, what are you bringing to the table, and I'm going to bring it. Like, let's collaborate.
That's right.
Versus like, this is what's going on, and I'm like, well, you can't do that.
Right.
Well.
And then all of a sudden you're butting heads straight away.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think too, it's just nice to again have those conversations. And it's just like in the approach. You go in, you go, hey, you know what? Like, I'm thinking about this. I mentioned it to the client. Like, what do you think? Instead of like, this is how it is, right? Like.
Yeah.
And Walter, you brought up a great point too about budget. Like, it's something that even now I'll look at your quotes sometimes and I'll be like, oh, okay. Oh, I didn't realize that was that, that much, or,
it's not your job to, it's hard for anybody to understand what things really cost. I mean, the more that you do and the more that you see, but also every job is different.
That's right.
So you don't know what it takes in that effort to remove that wall.
Yes.
Unless you really ask the question.
Yeah.
And that's where you and I do really well, is that you bring me in on the front end and ask the simple question is, can I?
That's right.
Very simple question is, can I? Versus take it out.
That's
which
right.
I've had that many times where I'll go into a thing and the designer's like, you know what, I don't want any walls in this house.
Yeah.
In this house.
Yeah.
And So then, okay, well, if you don't have any walls in this house, how is this being supported, and how am I going to run the HVAC and all that? And then she'll turn to me and it's like, well, that's your problem to figure out.
Right.
And I'm standing there staring at the clients like, what do you mean that's my problem?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't have an invisible or magical way that I can make everything happen.
That's right.
So let's discuss what I need to make that happen.
That's right.
And some designers will turn around and it's like, I don't want to really talk about that.
So they just want you to do it.
Just want you to do it.
Just get it done.
Right? How do you cantilever a roof out off a porch, but I don't want the porch coming down because I want this modern, ultra cool thing.
Yeah.
And okay, well, how does that happen?
Yeah.
Well,
sure.
I don't really care. I just want that vision.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Well, and
so now I don't want to be
right?
Right,
and that's where the frustration. Like, well, have you ever dove in and maybe try? You don't need to fully understand it,
right?
But like, maybe if you're going to propose an idea, you don't necessarily have to already know it, but do a little recon or like, just do a little research because if we're throwing stuff against the wall and to see what sticks, and just. Yeah, I'm sure we can figure it out, right? Yeah. By it's my idea, and you figure it out,
That's
right?
Yes.
And I'm going, well, you may as well just be tearing pictures out of a magazine and said, look what I designed, right?
Yeah.
And everything is doable, but then I have to pretty much just rebuild the entire house.
That's right, and that comes at a cost.
And that comes at a cost.
That's right.
Did you tell the client it's going to be an extra $100,000 to do this?
That's
so
right.
So it's unrealistic.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing where you and I, where she'll bring me in on the front end. It's like, I want this wall out, and I can look at it and be 90% certain that Claire, let's design it, but you're going to have a post here.
Yes, that's right.
Now it's up to you to be creative to work around that.
Yeah, work it into the design.
Right.
And actually, while you mentioned that, Walter, so I'm just going to explain a little bit for the audience, just to explain how we work together. So I will have go to a client, I'll go to the consultation, and then as a client and I are talking, we're establishing, okay, what is the scope here? Like, do we need a 3D design? Are we wanting to knock down a wall? Or is it just decor? What are we looking at here? And then what I will do is I will then I say that my next step is if they're looking to knock down a wall, then I say, okay, I want to bring in my contractor. And bring in my contractor and have him come assess the space. It gives the clients a chance to meet you.
It does.
They always want to know quality trades. That's one of the reasons why they also hire us. They don't want the contractors that are going to run off on them with their money. I mean, it's a big concern for homeowners. But it gives them a chance to meet you, gives them a chance to see how we work together, how we communicate, and also I think because we have that mutual respectful relationship with one another, it just works really well, and clients like that. They seem to like that quite instantly. So then Walter will come in and then we'll talk about, I'll say I'm thinking about, taking down this wall, but we may have some ductwork. Can you confirm this? I hold my hand up. I'm not a designer. I am a decorator by trade. I fell into kind of doing this years ago, but that's why I won't even pretend to know something, and which is why I turned to Walter. So then Walter will give his advice, and then I'll go away, I'll do the design, and then usually I will send it to Walter maybe before I send it to the clients, just to say, am I on the right track? Do you think that this looks good? So I think the key really is, and we could all agree on this, I'm sure, but it's mutual respect for one another, and it's also, clearly communicating with one another and just building those relationships. And I think that's where, I don't know how, I know you work with a lot of other designers, you work with designers, I'm not sure how the relationship.
Well, that's. I mean, we're not on your podcast to pump your tires. We haven't known each other that long. I have already sent you an email with a response saying, "Oh my gosh, epic!
Yeah.
Just send me a YouTube video of a walkthrough." Now, I'm not saying you have to do that every time, but. I'm showing my guys in the shop.
Right.
Hey, check this out. So out of
he was
this,
pretty impressed.
I mean, because what you've done is you have clarity to what Walter.
Sorry, do you know my tagline is dynamite clarity for your interior design business? I didn't even tell you that. Clarity. I didn't tell you that.
Get out of town.
I know.
Okay, keep going to that.
All right. But
she's patting that.
What you've achieved there is so many different things with one video.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long it took. I'm not all that tech savvy. But,
doesn't take long, trust me.
But I'm saying this walkthrough let Walter know what we discussed in a meeting.
Yeah.
It let Walter know the additional costs that his client is going to incur with additional cabinetry work.
Right.
It let him know a closet is leaving. It let him know that we have subjects in the air that we'd like to figure out when we're framing.
Right.
Right? Like, check.
Yeah.
And that just wipes out so many issues with just that. And that is why I was like, whoa, was that a weird response? Epic.
Yeah, I was like,
Epic.
I like this guy, Walter.
So how come I've never received a video like this in my life? And it's always confusion on the back end. Whoa, that costs a lot of money. Oh, well, remember the video that we did a walkthrough? Yeah. That's where it came in. Walter would have the opportunity. He'd have paperwork from me. He'd have the video.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everyone needs to do that, but holy smokes, like what a game changer for me when it comes to design. It's like, well, just add a cabinet. Well, that cabinet, depending on what's in it, is $500.
Right.
Well, like that, just that, gone.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's important to have clarity.
Yeah.
And honesty, transparency, and all that stuff.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that was huge, and that's never been done.
Yeah.
For me, to me,
yes.
right? I've gotten some elaborate drawings and stuff, but nothing of that to clear it up with everybody.
Right. That's right. It's one hit, right? Like, I mean, my sister saw that, you saw that, Walter saw that, and I mean, I use video a lot for my business. I mean, it's been huge for my business in many different ways. And I have a course called Video for Profits, and in that course, I actually teach designers how to use video in that exact way. Like if you're not sure about something, for me to sit and actually email and detail it all, it takes way longer.
Well, you lose it, right? I've written emails, and I'm like. I've written emails where I'm like, okay, here's your lengthy email. I'll call you tomorrow. right? Because I'm like, this isn't making sense. I'm talking about gables and kick plate and 3/4 and ½ inch. So yeah, absolutely.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. No, that was good. No, thank you. I appreciate that plug.
Yeah.
It was nice. All right. So one of the things that comes up often is in the design industry is sometimes with trades stealing our clients. And I'm just going to explain that a little bit. I know we talked about it when we weren't really recording, so I'm going over it again a little bit. So, so basically, like I said, the trades are on site a lot of the times. Things maybe get switched up or whatever. We talked about that. But what happens when, how do you normally work if, let's say, Walter, so you and I, we've worked with many clients, and let's say one of the clients contact you after, maybe 6 months later, a year later, they have another project, and for whatever reason, they've gone straight to you. And, what happens sometimes is that the designer then is not called, is not brought in, but, that was our client initially that we brought into you. So it's really, just making sure that we're kept in the loop. So is this something that has happened? Do you see that, how do you work with that? Well, I guess, you and I know, but I'm just saying for the audience. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough area, right? I mean, to me, it's just a mutual respect that happens. For instance, Shane and I, we just finished a job, and the client reached out to Shane to build another cabinet within the house.
Right.
And he just simply reached out to me and told me what was going on.
Yeah.
Am I okay with that?
Yes.
And it was simple, for sure, because I don't want to get involved. The job was small. Yeah. It wasn't worth me even entertaining that.
Right.
So it just becomes a mutual respect that
Yes. And you would think though, right? It doesn't happen all the time for sure.
But it is tough. Like if someone reaches out afterwards a year later, and the question is why are they not involving the designer anymore? I guess because they've moved on. And
if they've moved on, or maybe they're like, well, I can save the fees for the designer. I just need to hire the contractor.
Which is a big issue. I get that quite often. Is a designer is brought in initially, the ideas are sent out, and then the homeowner takes over and no longer wishes to continue paying that fee, and now wants to deal with me directly.
Yes, to do the design that the designer did.
Not so much to do the design, because I don't get involved in that.
Right.
I've learned my lesson a long time ago
that
I'd rather not give my opinion on anything.
Right.
I'm fine with the client saying, "Hey, this is the 3 I'm going with. What's your favorite?"
Right.
But not me going out and picking those 3.
Yeah, because you don't want to make those decisions. You'd rather have the designer, like you said, on hand to do that.
I want that designer there throughout the whole thing.
So, I mean, and then I think to your point, we kind of said it a little bit when we were off air, like Shane had, like Walter was just saying that Shane had come to him to say, hey, you know, I have this client who, you know, is looking for work. And I think really that is the respect like we were talking about, just that because you know the hand that feeds you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
if Walter's continuing to give you work and I'm continuing to give Walter work, like you don't want to bite off that hand. You don't want to be like, oh, okay, I'll just take these 5 clients and I'll, you know, like, so that is something that I know has happened to me. I've, you know, things have come up on a job or a little while later and I'll ask the client, oh, are we ready to move on to that phase? And it's like, oh, the contractor helped us with some design details on that and he's doing it now, we're good.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, oh, okay. And that kind of feels like I've been thrown under the bus because he's there because I brought him in on that job, you know, that sort of thing. So I think it's the mutual respect for one another and
yeah, but why would the contractor not want you there is what I'm trying to understand, right? Like, why would a contractor want to?
Well, because I guess
to save the money, or is it a soured relationship?
The contractor's not saving any money. Because
at the end, sometimes it can get messy.
Yeah.
Or the contractor's not saving any money. This is
it's making more work.
It's more exactly right.
So
why would you want that?
But is it because sometimes if the designers that they're working with are not always easy to work with, you might be let's just get on with it ourselves.
That's valid,
right?
Yeah. Because there's been times where I'm like, wow, imagine if she wasn't here, man, we get this done, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, because it's been like, you know, hey, we're just again going back, you know, lack of clarity, lack of tangible paperwork. Like you can't walk into a place and go, you know what, I think it would be great here, and I think a splash of CC30 over there, and let's go thick. How thick? 4 inches. Right. Great. Oh no, maybe 3. Well, what about 2? What's too thick? What do you think? Right. I'm going, you know what? If you want to know what I think, maybe you should just leave. Right? Like, I mean, I don't, it's sometimes it can be easy. So maybe that might spawn it, and then that will, you know, you double down to maybe it was a sour relationship. Yeah. They're going, oh my gosh, I remember she was involved and no one could make a decision. Right. But your job is to make a decision. Right. So if we're debating what route to go, but now we're paying for someone to make a decision who can't make a decision or is indecisive. Right. What the heck's going on?
That's right. The experience was not pleasurable in the beginning, right?
If I had $1 for every time I got what do you think? Right? In a client meeting, I got no problem saying if you want to talk to me and say like, what, you know, I'm playing with this color palette. What do you think? Right? Yeah. But I've been multiple times under the gun saying, well, Shane, you know, what do you think is the best route to go?
Not with the client. What do you saying?
Right, with the client, with the designer. Right. All right. So now I'm under the gun. I'm being asked, well, what do you think about this? And then we go with that decision. So, like, I want her to be decisive, though, right? I want to collaborate, but sometimes I feel like I'm.
You feel like you're making the decision.
I'm making the decision, and I'm going, well, I don't want that.
But is it that, or the designer just wants reassurance that she's going to right? Because I have a designer like that. That's constantly, and she's wonderful. Yeah. But she's always asking me, what do I think? Mm-hmm. And then I almost need to just kind of, you know, make sure that she understands that her idea is the right idea. Right. Yeah. And I'll be like, well, you know.
Yeah. I do like to ask.
You know, and whatever you say is good with me. Yeah. And then it almost fuels her to it's almost like a confidence thing. Yeah. Right. Where she almost needs just some reassurance. Right. That's how I felt in certain situations.
I mean, for me, when I say, what do you think? Like, I really want to know, like, again, going back to, like, don't look at me like I got 3 heads and this is not doable. Like, tell me, what do you think? Like, I'm looking to you as the expert of someone that does this every day, and
but
I don't.
You have to understand that for us, I mean, I've gone into many situations where the designer is just way out there, and I'm like, wow, she's nuts. And at the end, it's like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Right. So I've learned not to. Yeah. Kibosh or squash what you're thinking. Right. Yeah. Because you have something like that's not what I do.
That's right.
That's not what I do.
Yeah. No, for sure. Right? For sure. Yeah.
So why would I try and stop you from doing that? Yeah. For me, it's almost that I feel that I need to just kind of give you, because it is sometimes intimidating being in that situation, and you know. Yeah. Sometimes the designer just needs a little bit of a push to be confident. Right. Because as I said, I have one for 15 years maybe I've been working with her, and I still need to just kind of guide her that, you know, go with it.
Yeah, just go with
it.
Yeah.
Like, trust yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Trust yourself. Because it is tough. I mean, you're sometimes in a situation, it's a $500,000 job. And that's right. I mean, everything is based on the outcome is not so much what I do. I mean, obviously for me, it's putting it all together and doing it well.
That's right.
But at the end,
we're the ones that
if
pick
the house is purple and the floors are black, I mean, that's not my fault.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it does put a stress on you, and sometimes it's just a matter of, for me, it's just pushing her to be confident and do it.
Yeah, so that's good. And so just while we're on the topic of confidence, like, do you find in general that what do you find in general with the designers? Like, do you find that they're confident in their abilities, or do you find that they're very questionable? Do you find that
I find that a lot are questionable?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there's a lot of designers out there, right? And I feel like a lot of them are doing it part-time, and it's not a career.
That's right.
And so they're cheating us because they're essentially wasting time. They're cheating the client. Like, they're not.
They're asking
you're either in or you're out. I mean, this is a profession. Are you doing it or not? Right? I don't know. It might be wrong for me to say that. I mean, you can dabble in design.
This is the naked truth, right? This is the naked truth.
This is the naked truth.
This is a housewife who's maybe affluent and doesn't need to work and needs something to do. And I've been in that many times.
Yeah.
And she decorated her own house, and it's
fantastic. She's a decorator.
And now she's a designer.
That's
right.
huge.
But she's going into not understanding because maybe her husband or whatever the situation was, they had a budget that was unlimited, and now they're in someone else's house spending their money.
That's right, and they don't really know because they haven't either.
They don't really know,
or they don't have the experience, but they've dabbled and they seem like
right. Because as a designer, you should be able to also go with modern and switch your styles.
Yeah.
Certain ones as well. This is what I did in my house, and now this is what I'm going to do in your house.
That's right. I mean, unless of course you're a designer that goes after that certain look, and that's what you're known for. Like that's your thing, right?
Which is
that's a thing.
Yeah, but I would say that has been quite a large. I mean, if anything, can you chalk that element up to what is souring the whole relationship?
Well, maybe because we've been talking about this.
Because, like I said, I have some awesome designers that I've worked with, and we were gelling and we were jiving and we're brainstorming, and it's great. And I'm not complaining about anything. And it's like, we're making it happen. And then some going, wow, the workload you're putting on me because you won't answer an email in 24 hours. I'm asking simple questions I can't get back. I'm waiting on a drawing. I get a pencil drawing that doesn't make sense. And there's nothing wrong with a pencil drawing, right? But a little bit, like, I've been in meetings in like $3 million houses where they must have been a friend of the homeowner going, this is what I'm thinking. I'm like, well, that means nothing to me.
Right.
All right. Yes, I can't believe you would propose that. Right. But that's something she did while she was having her morning coffee, and life goes on.
Right.
But there's more money involved in it, and responsibility, and there's more at stake for me and Walter. Yeah. All right. It's not just like, hey, pack it up. Wow, we made that mistake. Whatever. Yeah. Right. There's no like, if you're doing it part time, the consequences are none. I mean, not none.
Yeah, I mean, you still have responsibility, but I know what you're saying, and we do get that a lot, and we do feel that in the industry, that like any industry, like I mean, it's the kind of the few, or like hopefully the minority, in terms of that, what you're saying now. That is a problem. That is a problem. People do their house nice, and then people are like, "You should do this for a living," and then they just start doing it. But everyone thinks it's so fun, right? And I'm like, you have no idea all the paperwork and all the processes you have to have in place. It's just fun. Let's just paint color.
And here's one thing that drives me crazy is you're doing a full house, and the designer has all these ideas, and then there's maybe 20 choices in tile that we need for that house, and she's gone to like 7 stores to pick them all.
Right.
And now she's like, okay, can you go and pick them all up?
Narrow down the supply.
So who's going to do that?
Yeah.
Right. For me, for point to point, I mean, that's several hours of going now to deal with each individual supplier. That drives me crazy.
That's right. So it's not just no, for sure, because I mean, at least. And I think also with that, and I'm not sure whether they're trying to get fancy and they can't find what
they're trying to get fancy. They're very particular, so it's all over the map.
Right.
And to me, I can't stand that. Like I don't mind that, here's a general place, we're going to pick the majority, and maybe there's 1 or 2 things that really is important to you, for sure.
Yeah.
But 7, 8 places to go to just for that, and then plumbing is kind of all over the map again, and all of a sudden, well, I need more than my usual markup now.
That's right. Because now your guys are having to run all over town.
Well, now I actually turn to the client. It's like, well, you know what? We're actually going to charge you now for driving around all over the place.
Yeah.
Because that guy is costing me, that truck's costing me,
That's right.
and I have to go now and spend an entire day just picking up things.
Yeah, and it's a good point too. And I think sometimes that can come from, there's some suppliers that you want something a little unique, something a little different.
I appreciate that.
But I also think that, and one thing that I try to do when I'm coaching is to teach designers that it's better to have like your smaller group of, contractors, trades, suppliers, so because otherwise we can't feed everybody. We can't, if you're dealing with 7 tile places, you're not going to feed, and they're not going to care about you as much as that 2 or 3,
want someone,
right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Repeat business, and
that's right. Like Walter,
hope they have the unique one.
And that's where you have a difficult designer again, and that relationship is not going to go well because she's so particular. Like some of my designers will go into a place and she'll be able to pick what she needs, and if it's not quite what she wants, she'll move to the next alternative.
Right.
And simplify the whole process.
Yes.
Versus complicating. At the end of the day, does the client really know if it's this tap or that tap? I mean, that's more.
Designers know.
I know, but there has to be a middle ground. Is what I'm saying.
Yes.
There has to be a middle ground in order for the job to. I mean, that's just me from me working in
for
business.
Sure.
That has to be profitable.
Yeah.
Right.
No. And
if you make it that it's not profitable for me, then I don't want to work with you.
Well, that's right. Because at the end of the day, we're all running a business, and we got to make money, right? This
If
isn't
your
playtime.
client is willing to pay whatever it takes, then I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'll go to Saskatchewan and grab a tap if that's what you want.
There's more exotic places in Saskatchewan.
I don't have a problem with
Italy.
Yeah,
but my point is that if it's an endless budget, then I don't care.
Yeah, but most of the time it's not an endless budget.
Most of the time it's not. I find that 90+% of the time it's not.
No,
there's always a budget. There's always a breaking point.
Yeah. So I know we could keep going, and we may even record another if the guys have time. We'll see. But I'm gonna have to end it. But I've loved chatting with you guys. I know I've wanted to do this, Walter, for so long.
I know. A couple of years now.
Yeah, seriously. Every time I'm like, we got to get together. I'm gonna do a video with you. And I was able to rope Shane into it as well. So thank you so much. If we could just kind of leave on one thing, maybe just. By the way, I'm just gonna add handles to where you guys can find these guys on Instagram. They love Instagram. These contractors. They love posting. They love doing videos.
Very active.
Pushing all the time.
But what would you say, just quickly, maybe just on a last note, what is the one thing that you would love to see more, like from a designer? Like, just, is it kind of what we talked about with the respect, having these conversations? Like, what do you wish?
For me, I would just like clarity on the role you play in whatever project that can change as every project changes.
So the designer coming to you going, hey, this is what I do.
This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw some colors at you. I need some samples. I'm going to throw some concepts and some ideas on my idea board.
Yeah.
And I need you to run with them. Can you help me?
Okay.
And I go, great.
And they say, this is what I do for the client. I'm going to present. You're going to build. We're going to talk about it. Like, just clarify that.
Yeah, clarify what your job is.
Okay.
So I can alter and I can figure out mine.
Yeah.
Because the other alternative answer is, I'm going to design all these cabinets and I'm going to provide you drawings. And then I go, great, I'm going to review them. Then we're going to have a meeting saying, hey, I need 3/4 of an inch here and 1 inch there.
Right.
That's great. But don't throw it all at me with miscues and, this is how it has to be.
Right.
It's just, like I said, I'm an easy person to work with. I'm ready to go any which way.
Right. Let's
so
just talk about it.
Be clear on what you're bringing to the table.
Right. Okay, good. That's a good lesson, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Walter, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of along the same sort of line. As I said, I like designers that just think that we're coming in as a team.
Yeah.
That we're not against each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
As I said, to me, I want you there.
Yes. Yeah.
The question is do you want to work together with me, or do you want to work against me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. For sure.
Right.
No, and that really just comes down to the key of finding your good people, finding the trades, finding your designers that you can work with, building that relationship.
Yep.
Not everyone's going to be able to work with everyone. Not everyone is going to gel together. So I think that really is the key. But thank you guys. I want to talk all day. Seriously.
Maybe.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much. This has been TNT, and we'll see you next time.
Pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure.